Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's virtual event. Hopefully everybody is connected and can hear me okay. My name is Mihal, and I'll be moderating the webinar today and looking after everybody. Joining me on the call is Éamonn McGuinness. Can you hear me okay, Éamonn?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. We passed the tech check. So Éamonn is our product manager here for BrightWork 365, which is our project and portfolio management tool for Microsoft 365. And he has just overseen a fantastic new release, actually. So we're going to take a look at that and some of the capabilities as we look at how to get visibility with project management templates for Microsoft 365. So just before I get into what we're going to cover today, just have one or two housekeeping items. We are assuming and hoping actually that you have lots of questions today throughout the demonstration. If you do have a question, please just expand out the questions panel and go to webinar. So it's on the right-hand side for me. Hopefully it is for you too. If you just want to type in your questions there, and even if you want to try it out now and say hello to us, we will answer as many questions as come up, but at the end of the webinar, if that's okay. But please do add them in the meantime. Secondly, this webinar is being recorded. Just checking, yes. So don't worry too much about taking any notes. You will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording and any slides that we use as well. And you can share that with your colleagues or take a look at it, or you might have some questions after that, after reviewing it, which is great. I can see some of you are already asking, asking questions already, which is brilliant. So as I said, we're going to be talking about instant visibility into your project management with templates. Having pre-configured templates, I guess, ensure that you have a quick start with immediate success for your projects. And I guess it makes sure that everyone in your project team is using the same approach and singing off the same hymn sheet, so to speak. It's also vital that all your project information is in the same tool. So secondly, I guess we're going to look at how you could work your projects through our Gantt and our work reports. It's also important that your templates, I guess, are suitable for all project types and that they're easy to configure as you evolve your project management processes. And I guess that's something that Éamonn will hopefully cover today as well. So we're going to look at how you might configure BrightWork 365 as well for managing projects. So just before we get started and I hand over, I might just run a quick poll if you don't mind. And I guess I'm just looking, why does your team wish to address project and portfolio management? So just a couple of answers there. Is it that you're struggling with the lack of consistency with your projects? Is starting a new project and applying project management to it, is that too time consuming? Are you struggling with like information is siloed maybe in Excel or and people don't have access to it? So I'm just going to let that run for another couple of seconds. 70% of you have said all of the above, so you're in the right place. But it's good for us to know what kind of people want to focus on. So I'm just going to let that run for another 10 seconds, guys. All right. Thank you, folks. That's brilliant. As I said, it's mostly all of the above and split pretty evenly across the top three. So I'm going to hand over to Éamonn for now. He's going to talk us through the presentation, and I will be on hand for questions towards the end. But I'm also online here if you want to pop in your questions in the meantime. So Éamonn, over to you for now.
Mihal, thanks. Folks, I only have 2 slides and then I just get straight into the demo. What we've been doing for quite a number of years, if you happen to know our company, is we've been working project and portfolio management on the Microsoft platform, principally using SharePoint hosted online or in servers in your own shop. And we've done is we've taken that experience and we've said, how could we do something similar for Microsoft 365, which would be your deployment of your collaborative suite in your own tenant that you own or rent or subscribe to from Microsoft. So kind of in your own secure space. And there was a lot of stuff in Microsoft 365 to use, like Teams and SharePoint Online, and the security of Azure Active Directory, and then of course Power Platform with Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, and so on. So we essentially looked at all those goodies and said, how could we do project and portfolio management? And bringing a lot of experience from the prior lots of years, 26 or more. Actually, we started originally on Lotus Notes, for those who remember. So then we said, well, look, as well as bringing the software solution to the party or to the table, we would also bring the approach that we found successful, because we found that a lot of organizations tend to take too much project management to begin with, and it kind of turns people off. So we have this idea, practice, protocol that's been very successful of Start Evolve. Start with an amount of project management that allows people to get off the dime very quickly. That's not too much, doesn't give people project management indigestion, if you like. An amount of project management that's enough so that all the projects can get in quite quickly, and senior management can get visibility into what's going on. Every project may not be perfect, but at least they can see every project. And then gradually dial up the amount of project management or down as time goes on. So the software, as we'll see, particularly in this release, is instrumented to facilitate that Start Evolve. And then the approach we take to accompany you on that project management success journey is also, the services is also Start Evolve. So end of explanation. Let me just switch straight to the demo. Now what I need to do is do that. What I'm also going to do is I'm also just going to switch off my webcam for the moment, so it's not distracting either of us. So to the demo itself, the most important part of the webinar, hopefully, I guess. So if you look at this home page here, we've got requests in this icon for new projects, the actual resulting projects, and portfolios or collections of projects. And they're all, as we'll see in a few minutes, driven by templates. So they're really the four elements. We break it down into a request, projects, portfolio, and templates. And if you look at the nav on the left-hand side, and this is kind of an overview of the solution, if you like, or the approach we take. Under the home, where we happen to be landed, there's my work, and that's essentially what do I have to do across all the projects to keep my end of the bargain. There are dashboards, and the idea behind the dashboards are how do we give senior managers visibility into what's going on so that they have a good sense and can control the projects, if you like. So my work is, what do I have to do? Dashboards, how are we as a team or a group doing? And then if you look down the left-hand side, we've got requests for new projects, and we'll dig into those in a few minutes. We've got the actual projects themselves, and the requests really, if I go back for a second, requests are about how do we help the right projects get off on the right foot, make sure less projects are challenged or less projects fail. If we look at projects, then we're trying to figure how can we give each project manager and each project the right amount of process for that project and for their team. And then portfolios, so we have one portfolio here, and you could have multiple, and each portfolio can have many programs, and then each program, can have many projects. So what you really want to do is you want to have visibility for the senior or other managers so that they can exert control. And then the fourth leg of the stool in the templates area you have various templates that can be used to govern your project management approach, and specifically to help you with this start, evolve ethos and approach, which we found so pragmatic and so successful. So in summary, it's requests, projects, portfolios, and templates. As Michal said, do keep adding your questions to the Q&A or the chat, and we'd be delighted to pick them up maybe in 10, 15, 20 minutes when we've kind of gone through this demo here. So if that's an overview of the approach to project management using Microsoft 365, using your Microsoft 365, where might you start? So, this is a diagram we looked at a little bit earlier, or something like this in the slide. This is on our website. And this really is the key, project management success strategy in the middle. So essentially what we would work with you in a very clear and simple way is work out your project management success approach, figure all the things you'd like to do, pick the things you want to start with, and put the rest on a backlog. And some other stuff like figuring out what your desired outcome is, where you expect to see the value, and tracking that through and make sure you get it. So a real project management success strategy. So the starting point basically is here, deciding where you want to start. And where you start, of course, will be dependent on your own context. So for this example, let me kind of make up 3 areas by way of example that you might use, and a good way to kind of wander through the solution. So for your start, number 1 of 3, you might actually have a project template like this. Michal mentioned templates. So in the template, you have a charter, which describes what is the project hoping to achieve. You have a status, which is explaining where exactly are we. This particular one has health and no other indicators. If you keep an eye on this one, it is target start and target finish. And I think that's a bit too much, but we'll come back to that a little bit later, if you would remember that. It has a place for the team, automatically filled in as people are assigned work. A place for the task list, which could be as simple as 1 task, if that's all you wanted to put in with kind of start and end, or as sophisticated as you wish. A place to show people the work they've got to do on the project, my work, and the documents or deliverables. And that's it for the light template. Now, I'm logged in as project manager, so I can see project settings, and I have the option to have approvals if I wish to have an approval from one stage of the project to the next, if that was to be used. So your project light is quite a light template. By the way, this template shipped out of the box with our 2023 September release. Now, what you're really trying to do here is, in this example, is you're trying to put in a reasonable amount of project management, but not too much, so that a lot of projects can be put in quickly, so that when, for example, the second area you might focus on is my work. So if all the projects are in, then all the work I have to do across all the projects is available at my work across all the projects. So that's your second focus maybe. And perhaps your third focus on a start might be a set of dashboards. And you might not even go for the Power BI ones to begin with. I mean, of course you can, because they're there out of the box, but you might go with something simple like these Power Apps dashboards. And for example, if I click on these projects by health, and I just click the ones that are red because I'm a senior manager and I want to kind of manage by exception, then I'm straight into those. And of course, I also could, see the project list many different ways if I'm looking across projects, or export the report to Excel and kind of work it that way. So an example of a start might be, just to recap quickly, an example of where you might start might be something like a project light template. which allows a project manager to present the project in a way that it's easy to collect information about the project that's actionable and not too burdensome. And back to that point of certainly not giving people project management indigestion. Second area you might focus is the team member focus on my work. And third, the senior manager focus on project and portfolio management. And you've really hit the three bases there, you know, project manager, team member, and senior manager in that first start rollout. You probably, if you were a champion, want to do way more. But if you do less sooner, you get more projects in quicker and you get a lot of buy-in. And you know from your law of physics, in order to get momentum, you have to have movement. So if you get movement quickly, you know, you'll get to momentum sooner. So then what you do is you let this bed in and you support people and you help people. It could be for a few days, could be for a few weeks, could be for a month or two. And you take the feedback, of course, you process the feedback. Some you address immediately, some you put on your backlog. And then you say, okay, I'm ready to evolve. I'm ready to bring it on to the next piece. The start was successful. You know, people are enthused. They want more. Like a good party, you leave early and leave people wanting more. So how do you approach the evolve? Well, you go back to your project management success strategy that you've crafted carefully. And it lays out what you thought you might do next from your backlog. And you check that and maybe you change it. And you just do some work on that. And then you decide what's in your evolve. And again, what's in your evolve depends on your context. So an example might be the following three. So you might build on the project light and you might say, you know what, there are some of these projects are ready for more project management. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy the project standard template. And what it does is it gives, in addition to what we looked at in light, it adds in status reports, actions, and issues. Now, if I look at status here, actually there's a little bit more going on in the status. You know, I've got more indicators, like as well as health from the last one, I've added in time and scope. And we'll see in a few minutes how you add and subtract these things quite easily. And if I look at that page, I know this is hopefully the status of the project if it's been kept up to date. But what I do is I can go in here to status reports, which is the new one. And they're the last two status reports. And then I just click new status report as a project manager. And if you look at the two panels on the right, it has scraped whatever was in the status report. And it gives me a place on the left to add my current kind of color commentary, if you like, with the ability to email to the sponsor and other people and so on. And then I would quite easily add a status report that then is logged with this particular project. And then actions and issues, I'm sure you kind of, you guess what's kind of behind those as well. So that might be something you do, you know, to begin with. In this particular template, I mean, I can actually show you as well that we've got this Teams link. So what we're actually doing is we're viewing the same project instead of through the browser, through a Microsoft Teams team, and it has its own channel. So this is the team, and then this is, if I click here, this is the charter or the actual project. You know, the actual project that we were looking at. And there you have charter, status, my work, issues, the exact same one. So that if people are coming into Teams way more often, as a lot of us are, then they get access to the same project, but via Microsoft Teams. Also in here, if I look at documents, another part of your Microsoft 365 infrastructure that you own and control, as well as Teams, of course, is SharePoint Online. So here we're using SharePoint Online, you know, to create new documents, upload documents, or if I single click one to check in, check out, and have all those kind of controls as well. So maybe the first thing you do in this evolve is you deploy more project management because you feel people are ready and they will take it. So you've got a light and a standard approach for various projects. Now, you may ask me in a few minutes, how do you upgrade from one to the other? And I'll show you that as well in a few minutes. And then you might say, well, look, you know what? I've added more project management, and these light and standard works for lots of my projects, but I have some very specific processes in our company. You know, one example would be new product introduction. So it's still a project with tasks and objectives and milestones and so on, status reports and risks. But if you look up top, I'm going through a different set of stages like business case, development, scale up, launch, and then we've a standardized product or whatever. You can make up your own, of course, and tie it into the project, and then tie the approvals into that. So, you know, stage gate, I go from development to scale up and scale up to launch, and I can be very formal or as formal as I want about that. So basically, second thing you might do in Evolve is say, well, look, I now want to reach out to these different kinds of projects we have, where the light standard and structured template might not be right because I want to bake in more particular project management. And that's something you might want to do as part of your first Evolve. Like while I'm here actually, by the way, that standard template we looked at a couple of minutes ago is also one that shipped out of the box with our 2023 September release. So if I look here, while I'm here at this particular project, this is the NPI one, just to show you some other capabilities that came out in the recent release. So if I click critical path, all these items in blue are done. So they're certainly not on the critical path. But as I go down here, I can identify the critical path. So that's a change we put in. Then another change we put in, in fact, we're going to look at this one a little bit later, this particular task as it relates to resource utilization. So if I look in here, I click at the resources. So I have one person on it, and instead of being 100% assigned, he's assigned 20% of the time. And in here, in this particular one, that's actually finished, one person on 50%, and the other person was on 100%. So that kind of partial assignment. Another thing we did here was, you know, if I look at this task here and I bring it all the way to 100%, oops, sorry, I bring it to 100%. Oh, I'm clicking, it's funny, I'm dragging the wrong one there. The 100%, it strikes through and indicates that it's now finished. And if I take it back to 59%, it unstrikes through. So you got that visual indicator on the left without looking to the right that the task is done. But other stuff like a much larger drag area if you want to associate and make dependencies between tasks. So continued investment in the task scheduling engine of the component. Other things, you know, that you'll see there that have been done before, like baseline in way prior releases. And here you see, of course, that this particular project is well past its baseline. So it's something that you may wish to check out. And then we've got this Gantt view, but we also have this grid view. So if you wish to work in Gantt or grid or a mixture of both, both are facilitated. So that's maybe a second thing you want to do, is introduce a new project management process for particular business processes you have. And many other examples from our customers as well. So if I go to maybe a third thing you might want to do, so I go back to dashboards, and maybe at this stage in the second Evolve, you might say, you know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, at this stage, I'm going to roll out the Power BI Senior Exec dashboard. So there's a portfolio dashboard, and I can see Alex's project manager just show me Alex's projects. or just for the operations, just show me those projects. And I can dice and slice and click through to the projects and sort. And you really have the opportunity as a manager to examine what's happening in the portfolio of projects. And there's lots of other ones here out of the box, as you might expect. So that last one was multiple projects. This is an individual project, a dashboard for it. All the projects across a timeline. If you want to see the work, assigned to lots of people. So I just want to see, all the work that Alan has of this type, the actions, or I want to see all the tasks that Alan has, or by assignment type and so on. So lots of flexibility to interrogate the data in different ways. So the first evolve, in summary, might be more project management with the project standard, different kinds of project management with templates for different kinds of projects, and more portfolio and program management rolled out. And then what you do is you let that bake, settle, you allow people the opportunity to come back for support and help. You, again, with the Start Evolve approach, address stuff that you think is important to address, put the rest in a backlog, and then you come maybe to a second Evolve sometime later. And again, you dust off the project management success strategy, and our customer success partner would be delighted, if you so wish, to accompany you in that thought process. And then you plan out your second Evolve when you feel your team are ready for it. And what might be in something like that? Of course, what's exactly in it will be dependent on your context and your journey to value. So where are you on the journey to the outcome and the value you want, as determined in your project management success strategy? So one thing you might do is you might decide to add project request management. So what that would do is that would say, well, listen, instead of just starting projects as we wish, we'd put them through a governance process. So we get the right information to the right people so they can decide, does this project start now or later, or maybe not at all, or with whatever resources. And you can see here, there's an opportunity to fill out information on it, and you can, of course, change these. And we give you templates out of the box and add documents to it. And then if you know some of the details about where this project would end up if it was approved to be in this portfolio, this program, and I'd be looking for this project manager, so you can put that in. It can be changed later, of course, as the project details. And then the approvals. So this particular template goes from draft to accepted to reviewed to approved. So accepted as a valid kind of thing to be reviewed, and then reviewed and approved. And then the people for the different stages can be different, and they can be set up in the template. And you can give them add instructions that go out with the notifications and decide, does that particular stage from accepted to reviewed and reviewed to approved, does it automatically go, or do you want someone to intervene to push it on? So a huge amount of control over all of that. And then as well as that, there's a request app, which just has this functionality. And there's a free BrightWork license. You can give it to anyone in your organization so they can make requests of your project teams, which our customers find helpful. So that might be one thing you do. A second thing you might want to do is you want to dial up maybe the visibility into how your projects are going from a resource utilization point of view. So for example, I think we mentioned a little bit earlier, we showed a little bit earlier that on one of these tasks, Billy was utilized just 20%. So that's picked up by the resource utilization reporting. So that 20%. And in fact, if we can do this, if we change it to the next 4, and then we say we look at across the next 4 months, then we see that if we look at this particular one, this particular task, it's about 33, 36 hours per month, which is about 20% of a person working a kind of a regular 5-day working week and so on. And then, so all that is taken into account. And then, as you would imagine, what you actually get is, you can then just maybe just look at Billy or look at everybody, and then the various indicators then would say, for example, if somebody is red, they're overloaded. If somebody is gray, they're in the safe zone. And if somebody is, at 100%, then it's kind of green. So, and lots of other capabilities here as well to dice and slice this information. That might be something you evolve to. And perhaps the third one then, if we go back to the templates, and let's say, for example, you decide, I'm actually going to look at project templates, and I'm going to look at that light template. So do you remember we looked at a project a little bit earlier? And the project actually was called, let me see, I've got it here in my notes, New Consultant Team Onboarding. So that's the project. So I'm in the templates area, and I go to the form configurator, and this is new in the September 2023 release, as was that addition to the resource utilization I just showed you. And you see here that out of the box, it comes this way, or you've chosen to keep it. And you see, for example, on the light template, there's no issues. So it's blank. So I'm just going to tick that and add in issues. And then if I look at status and I look at schedule, it is this target start and target finish. And I'm thinking, that's just too much. That's too much for folks. Like if we just get them to do start and finish, that'll be plenty. So, and I can make other changes as well. Like there's a lot of stuff there, expand all, collapse all. So I have the ability here to expose or hide the different tabs, like issues, risks, costs, and so on. The sections inside. So, for example, on status, we've got the schedule and the indicators are 2 sections. And in the indicators, actually, if you remember on the light, we just had health. We didn't have cost, but if I wanted to add in cost, I could. So I can hide or expose. Well, let me just show you what I mean. So I'm going to do save. So I've just saved that configuration. Click, I'm in the templates area, and I want to see what it looks like. So I click one of the projects. So I have a list here of all the projects that use that template. So I click here. Yeah, it was new consultant onboarding. And then this project now has issues, which it didn't have before. And this project has, if I go back to status, it doesn't have the target start and the target finish. So I've changed the configuration of that. So you could see how you could easily add in and start using a template. And then if somebody said, you've given us a project management approach with no risk management. And you say, leave it with me, let me see what I can do. And then you go back to your templates area and you look at the template that they're using, and you go to the project light template and you have a look and you say, yeah, let me add in risk management for that template. Or maybe you give them a different template or whatever. And there are templates for the request management and for the various forms and so on. So quite a lot of flexibility there. So if we summarize, what we're really trying to do is, number one, make the best use of what's inside your Microsoft 365 tenant. SharePoint Online, Word, Excel, Power Platform, the security, everything, and use the bits and pieces in a way that we give you a very flexible, template-driven project and portfolio management solution with which you can start evolve. So it's kind of baked into the product, as you saw there as we were going to the configuration. And the other thing we want to do then is as well as have the software Start Evolve actually offer you Start Evolve companion services. So our customer success partners will accompany you for as much as you would like to help you on your project management success journey. With the subscription, you also get, of course, the support, the annual project management success review as part of your subscription, and of course, the very extensive help or knowledge base that we, of course, update with each release. All right. So let me go back then, and let me say our demo is finished. There's a couple of slides. Oh, sorry, Mihal, I think is going to run a poll, and he's just going to say, you know, because at the start you were kind enough to tell us why you would like to address project management, and we're kind of curious to see, did anything we show help you? So Mihal might launch that poll.
Damon, I'm actually having a little bit of trouble with the poll at the minute, so we might just delay on that, and I'll see if I can get it going as we're answering the questions. If that's okay with you, we might just dive into that.
Let me see if I can see it for you. What's the name of the poll?
It's not loading, so it's not there right now.
Okay.
But
no worries,
see if I can get it going in the meantime.
Yeah, no worries. So folks, there's a couple of extra slides which I won't cover because it's just a summary. So if you wanted to download the slide and show people on a couple of slides some of the key things we covered, they're on those slides, and you'll get those, I guess, tomorrow with a link to the recording as well. So what we'd like to do at this stage is open it up for your questions, and we would be delighted to answer as many as we can.
Thanks, Éamonn. So I'm just going to dive in. Some of these questions were asked pretty early as well, so they may have already been answered, but let's just cover a couple of them anyway. Christine wants to know, will the presentation today be supported by desktop or server versions? So I think we're talking about, is BrightWork 365 supported by desktop or server versions?
Yeah, so so Christine, the way it works is we have a version of BrightWork for SharePoint. So if you had SharePoint in your shop and you wanted to use a SharePoint only server version, and then we have BrightWork forever and a day. But if you have a Microsoft 365 subscription where all your data is hosted in your tenant in the greater Microsoft 365 cloud, then that's what this one is about. That's what we're essentially have here. Now, Christine, if that didn't answer the question, just please do come back and kind of expand on it. So with that in mind, it's browser, so you can just get at it browser. You can also get at it from Microsoft Teams. You can also export stuff to Microsoft Excel and use it there. You can get at some of the reports in Power BI and so on. So whatever tools you have in Microsoft 365, actually is kind of on the slide there, all these different icons. These are the tools that you're kind of interfacing with to the solution.
Great. Douglas has an interesting question about how long would it take to stand this up in their Office 365 environment?
Yeah, so Douglas, if I can give you two answers to that, if that's okay. The actual install, like, I don't know, maybe an hour. Assuming if someone knows, has the right permissions and that's not a lot of work. But then, in order to get it moved, what we recommend
is... Your phone is cutting out a small bit there. Can you just
Okay, hang on a
say
second.
that last bit again?
Hang on a second.
Oh yeah. While Eamon is doing that, let me have another go at the poll. So, as Eamon said earlier, we asked you at the start, why are you looking at project portfolio management at the minute? And I just want a very quick poll on, does it look like we answered your why? So yes, it looks great. It looks good, but I have a couple more questions, or it's just not something that we're interested in. So we'll take a quick break from the questions and let this poll run. Glad to see that most people are voting yes, it looks great, and a couple of you have some more questions. That's very promising. Thank you. So I'm just going to let that run for a little bit. Eamon, whenever you have your microphone sorted, you might just kind of let me know. Oh, there you are.
Hello.
I can hear you.
Yeah, it's funny. I took my headset off and disconnected it, but the GoToWebinar didn't like it, so I was talking away to you without my headset, and you were gainfully employed with the poll, so that worked well.
That's okay. We're no dead air here. So I'm going to close that out. Folks, that's great. Almost all of you have said that it looks great, or some of you have said that you have some more questions. So we really appreciate that feedback. And I'll actually give you some details for how we can facilitate those questions for you. But let's take a little bit more time here to cover those. So Eamon, we heard that you said it'll take about an hour, give or take, to set up, but then you kind of started.
Oh yes,
next part
yeah.
Of that answer.
So then what you want to do is just take a little bit of time and just kind of formulate your start strategy, and pick the template from our out of the box ones, and maybe use them or change them, and then launch them. So if you can really focus on it, and just dedicate the time to doing that, you could do that in a few days. If you're really, really busy, some of our customers kind of spread it over a couple of weeks. So it just depends on how involved you want to get in that process. But the actual standing up of it and it working is to actually get it installed and have it available for use is ours.
Excellent. Quick start with out-of-the-box templates, which is something that someone asked, and I think we've already covered. Christine wanted to know, is the Project Light template out of the box? So the answer is yes, I think.
Yeah, the Project Light template is absolutely out of the box. Yeah, we kind of encourage people to use this light approach, but we put it into the September release out of the box. So yeah, absolutely, yes.
Just to keep on the templates, Alex wants to know, can the ability to create or modify templates be user role restricted?
Oh, it is, absolutely. Yeah, so that, Alex, that's restricted to what we call template editor, which is usually you give it to the project office administrator. So absolutely, yeah, can be restricted, definitely. And it's just, we, out of the box, by default, we restrict that to what's called template editor, and then you decide who to give template editor to. So it's quite simple.
Are the templates limited to versions of a timeline, or can you also create a RAID log, RASI, or comms template, etc.?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something I forgot to cover actually. I showed light, standard, and structured, and some of them had issues. When you think of RACI, some of them, and RAID, some of them had risks. some of them had actions, some of them had issues and deliverables. So you could have some templates with all RAID of RAID or some with part of it. So that bit I believe show. However, what I forgot to say was that you can actually say, for example, you run a project and you have, at the end of it, you figure this is really how the project runs. Typically, these issues come up, these risks typically come up, these deliverables are a part of it, and so on. So what you can actually do is you can copy those into what we call a content template and associate them with your project. So when someone starts a new project, you'd have your risks and your issues and actually in the project. Now they wouldn't be, filled out to the nth degree because that's part of the project, but the name of the issue there, whatever information you wanted to add with it. So yes, and they can be templatized in that way so that you give people a really good head start. Yeah, I forgot to mention that actually.
Great. Folks, I'm just conscious of the time. So we said we'd keep you for 45 minutes, but there are more questions. So we're going to stay on and keep going with questions. And you're more than welcome to stay. If not, please keep an eye out for the recording email tomorrow, and that'll come from our colleague Adam. So just keep an eye out for that. But I'll keep going with questions for now. There's one or two questions here about Microsoft Project, which is a tool that some people might be familiar with. So Rebecca wants to know how does it compare to that, and Peter is interested in import from that. So maybe you could kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I should actually show it, shouldn't I? Give me a second. I'm still sharing my screen, I guess.
Yeah.
So I go back to projects. So it's browser based, so it definitely won't be the full Microsoft project, which is 35-year-old desktop application with amazing functionality. But it has baselines, it has critical path, it has the ability to export to Excel. It has the ability to add tasks, milestones, indent, outdent, expand all, collapse all. For a particular task, you can have dependencies, the 4 types, finish to start, start to start, and so on, between tasks, and you can drag and drop and do those, zoom to fit, and so on. So it has quite a lot of the Microsoft Project functionality in the browser, and then and obviously you don't need an extra license for it, and that's all hooked up to the rest. So when you add in tasks and start dates and finish dates and target dates and partial or full resource utilization, that all flows through all the reporting. So in that sense, it serves very well as a scheduling engine, and it's something we continue to invest in. Actually, we're well started. We finished the September release the week before, and we're well into the January release already. And we're doing more work, adding more functionality to this part of our product. It doesn't currently, to the second, I think it's Peter's question. That was Rebecca's question, hopefully. But Rebecca, if there's more on that you'd like to know, ask me. To Peter's question, it doesn't currently import from Microsoft Project. But we are looking at the ability to paste in multiple tasks, be a whole lot of tasks, and just paste them in. That's something we're looking at. So hopefully that answered that question for Rebecca and Peter.
Great. Um, Catherine wants to know, can users or project managers track the amount of time spent on tasks?
It's a good question. Short answer is no. We don't have a time management module associated with this. We don't have a time management module associated with this. We are actively working, only yesterday, the specification to add in the ability to track work in a more detailed way. So you have duration and work, and how much work is done and to be done and all that kind of stuff. But we're not actively working a full time management solution with it. Time sheeting, no.
Peter wants to know what kind of cost management or reporting can we do?
So for each project, Peter, you have the ability, if you wish, to define a budget for the project, if you wish. You also have the ability to add costs of different types. And in fact, each cost, if you wish, as well as having a cost, can have a budget associated with that cost. So you could have a cost for a piece of equipment or consultancy, and some of it might be spent, some of it might not be spent. And if you wish, you can have a budget for that line item or not. So you can have cost line items, and you can have budgets associated with those. And then you have the ability to roll up those costs, you know, how much is spent, not spent, forecast still to be spent or whatever, and then compare that against a budget for the project, if you have a budget and so on. And then we have reporting around that, if that makes sense. And then, by the way, on other projects, you may elect not to do costing. There's some projects you might switch on costs, and some you might not switch on costs.
Right. Douglas has one or two, but Douglas wants to know, is this a SaaS solution?
No. So a SaaS solution, as you know, Douglas, would be one that we host in a data center that we manage. So we elected not to do that. We elected in this case to say that organizations had invested in Microsoft 365, so they have their own tenants. So you're subscribing or renting from Microsoft a 365 tenant where your email comes and your document storage and your OneDrive and your Teams is. So we give you this solution to put in your Microsoft tenant in that secure way. And then typically every 4 months, we'll give you an upgrade, and you can take that one or take the next one, or you know, and deploy those for the upgrade when you're ready into your tenant, into your cloud, basically your Microsoft cloud.
So Douglas has a follow-on question, and he wants to know what our pricing structure looks like, which I might, if you allow me, to answer with a link to our website.
And I'll actually show it as you're coming up there as well. Was it Douglas asked that question?
Yeah.
Douglas, it's a giveaway. Because you would say I would say that, right? But it's a giveaway. Like everything you looked at, you know, it's kind of your classic. Actually, it's your classic SaaS pricing, actually, or cloud pricing, per user per month, and it kind of goes all the way down depending on the number of users. And Mia's going to add a link into that. So that's fully published, available on our website, with the comparisons and so on. Yeah.
Okay, we're on to last one or two. Jagit apologies if I've butchered the pronunciation of your name. They'd like to know, can documents be linked to cloud storage? And they use Box cloud storage. Which is...
No, really what we're doing is we're kind of trying to keep everything. I mean, you could put links out, of course, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of encourage people to use the Microsoft 365 and SharePoint Online. That's really the kind of play we have here.
Sure. We talked about time management. Samantha wants to know, we're introducing service time standards. Will this help us track adherence to track the metrics easily?
We're introducing service time standards. Service time standards. Samantha, I'm not sure. I don't fully understand. I don't fully understand the question. Service time standards. So it may or may not.
After.
Yeah. But probably I don't want to kind of go yeah or nay in that one without understanding it better. Yeah.
Excellent. And Peter wants to know, and we'll finish on this one, can you add or modify fields to the templates or create new templates with selectable fields as well?
Gee, do you know, it's funny, I can't imagine I forgot to even mention that. Yeah, absolutely. That's, Peter, thank you for asking that question. That's the whole point of this. I know we give you out of the box templates, but I mean, you could go into the Project Lite, for example, and you could, you know, if you like it, you could just create a copy and then start changing it. Or if you go to templates, you just create a new template and start building it up with the components like from forms and so on. And absolutely, you can add new sections. I forgot to even show what a section was. I'm sure some people know, but if I go back to this project here, new consultant team onboarding, this is the light template, Peter. And we have the charter here. So this is the tab called charter. This is the tab called status. This is the tab for issues. That's the nomenclature for Power Platform. And in the tab, this is the section. Actually, if I go into issues and open an issue here, this is a section for reference, for issue details and resolution. And then these are the fields. So it's tab, section, field is kind of the, you know, the organization or the layout of the hierarchy. You could add in another section here and add in 3 or 4 fields and build it into your template. And if you did it that way, when we upgraded ours and added in new capabilities, you'd be preserved and upgrade as well, and so on. But yeah, the whole point of this is that we give you out of the box to start with, and then you can indeed create your own templates from there. Definitely, yeah.
Great.
And with selectable fields, as you say, yeah.
So we mightn't have finished quite on time, but at least we'll finish up at on the hour, which is a respectable time. Folks, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for all your questions. It's great to have that kind of engagement after such a really good presentation as well, Éamonn. So thank you as well for that. I'll leave you with the contact details for our colleague Adam. So some of you said that you might have further questions, or you might have very specific questions for your project management needs. So Adam is your first port of call for that, and Adam is also the person to talk to if you wanted a custom demo where we could actually talk about your specific project management needs and how BrightWork 365 might address them. So his contact details are there, but also keep an eye out for his an email from him tomorrow. And actually, one thing I'll add here as well is into the chat is his calendar. If you want, if you can't wait till tomorrow to hear from him, you can book 15 minutes in his calendar there for a very quick chat to talk about BrightWork 365. Folks, thank you again, and hopefully we'll be chatting to you very soon. Thank you, Éamonn, and have a great rest of your day.
No worries. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you for your time.